I love when I'm just like at home in Eugene, like with at like my best friend's house, and we're just like chilling and watching like intense and like really embarrassing reality TV because she's like the only person I like really watch that shit with, and like when we're like together watching it, like no one else is gonna judge us. Like we can just like be real and like talk about like how much we like wish we were fucking gypsies, or like that we think that Snooki and JWOWW are hilarious. And like I know I'm not alone in that. We're not alone in that. Like people just don't want to admit like how much they relate to these like reality TV like stars. But whatever, I don't give a fuck. I love Honey Boo Boo. I think she's hilarious. And oh my gosh, I would meet any of them. Like, I love that I got like so sucked into Big Brother this last season. Like, I was disgusting. I cannot believe like how obsessed I was with that show. And it's so hilarious that like pretty much like millions of people like around the country do that every summer as well, like whenever Big Brother's on. And like they just like day and night like follow the feeds. It's straight up creepy as fuck, but like I'm so happy that other people are into that too, because it makes me not feel like a disgusting person. um Oh my gosh. I love thinking about like my childhood, like those days when I really like didn't give a fuck and I was like this like totally unashamed like teeny bopper. Like I loved Hanson. I loved the Spice Girls, like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, like Britney, Christina, sure, but like Destiny's Child all the way. Even like Pink, like, and I loved Robin, like clear. I fucking loved her. I sang her songs like in my middle school like talent shows and stuff. Like I know Robin, like it's fine. And like Destiny's Child, like that shit gets me through some days, so that's just fine. I love that I see those types of things on Glee, and like I love Glee, and like sorry I'm not sorry that I happen to love musicals. Like music and singing just like it makes me happy. It's actually like a really positive way to deal with like my pent-up frustrations, and like I'm sad that I don't have like more spaces where I feel comfortable singing, because I think it's like such an amazing experience, like which is why, like, I'm, like, really happy that I've been going back to church with my grandma lately. Like, I have a lot of stuff to figure out with regards to, like, my faith and my beliefs, but, like, I love, like, that community. Like, this particular church, like, this particular community is doing it right. And, like, that's, like, where I find, like, a lot of faith. Like, ironically enough. Like, not necessarily, like, faith, like, in God or, like, any of, like, those types of things, but faith just, like, in humanity. Faith that, like, sometimes, like, in certain conditions, it works, like, really well. And, like, so I guess to give you background on this, like, church, on this, like, religious community, like, we're in the San Fernando Valley, which is, like, the not nice side of Los Angeles, but it's real, and it's fine, because there's so many different cultures and, like, ethnicities, I guess, here. So in our church, we have like a Spanish speaking mass, there's English speaking mass, Filipino, like Tagalog mass, and then there's like Vietnamese mass. So there's 4 different languages represented in my church. And then when we have like big like church-wide events, like Christmas, yeah, but like even things like like last year we one of the like priests who had been there, like he died, and so we had his like memorial and all that. All these like these church-wide events are multilingual, and they're like completely accessible, and like I've never really believed that like certain people like can't sing. I feel like if you just try, like you don't even have to like hit the right notes or like whatever. You just make an effort, like you sing, like you do a little more than just talking. Like singing is such like I think it's like such a symbolic, like powerfully is like symbol of like how we can move past things, and just like how we can like channel like whatever energy, like emotions we're feeling, into something that can like potentially save the world. So I don't, just because music is so powerful, like I don't know, like, I'm so happy I've been able to have so many different experiences that included music, and like in those ways, like I'm able to remember them and experience them again. You know, like certain songs were sung like um, at like COP17 in Durban, or like, you know, even like the chants or whatever that we do at Power Shift, like those types of things like that you can say out loud or like sing out loud. That's what makes this movement real. Like that's what makes it more than just like ideas and like kind of just like fluff and talk. Like those types of things are just like external reinforcements. So I'll give you an example of like how my friends and I speak when I go home. Like we have this strange like dialect, and it kind of just sounds like, well, we sing a lot of things. So like my friend Chelsea and I will be like, what the fuck? I don't know what that means. Like, oh my god, oh my god. And we have this like whole secret language, and like when I have like let that language, like when I just like let it slip to other people, they're like, they completely like catch on, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? And like they call me out on this because we all know what that means. So. And like I love when I meet, like I have like caught myself doing that sing-songy voice to like people from other countries. Like I've done it like because I do it sometimes when I feel really awkward, and so like I think at COP last year, like I maybe had done it like in front of like Asian youth and like European youth, and they were like, or just like my weird sing-songy voice, and people like laugh because they like don't know, they like probably just assume I'm being funny, but really I'm just being a fucking idiot. Like oh my god, I'm like so embarrassed. But I actually love when I meet people from other countries, and like I fulfill like their like idea, or like I totally like fit their idea of this like stereotypical American like valley girl. Like I talk with a really intense upwards inflection, and I probably speak a lot slower than everybody else, like, you know, like on the East Coast, or like who went to college and shit. But one, that's much more accessible to people who don't speak English like as their first language. So there's that. And two, now I just sound like every like friendly person like from like US based TV. Like now I sound like the Kardashians, and people probably think that that's cool because they love the Kardashians. So, you know, and like I love that I like when I go to things like COP that I get to like play this like really strange like reverse ambassador role where I'm like, hi, I'm everything that the US like really should be but isn't and like won't be like to like the majority of the world. Like I actually care what you have to say, and I'm like trying to work with you, and I like recognize my historical privilege, and like I'm completely ready to raise ambition, but unfortunately I'm not the fucking president, and I can never be because I wasn't born here, so that sucks. Like, or else I totally would have, like, honestly, but yeah. I love that I like have been able to just see how like elements in my life have led me to where I am today. And like I don't think it's fate, and I don't think it's like some strange higher purpose, but I do think that it means that I listened to like my gut instincts, and like I went with what felt right in my heart. And that's why. And like it's because like, so why I do this work is because this work is enrooted in so many different parts of my identity. And like that's what I think that the movement as a whole needs to build on. I love that, like, I'm able to recognize, like, certain elements in my life that brought me to this moment. Like, one of my grandfather on my father's side is a geologist. My grandmother on my father's side is both a hardcore activist and a writer, like journalist writer. And so my father's side of the family was like very political and like pretty intense, as my grandmother on my mother's side likes to say. But and I think that she's right. But my grandmother, my family on my mother's side is like very different. They are like what could be called like the more like religious, like traditional, like non like anarchist like side of the family. They're very like, they're much more like culturally like conservative and like reserved, I guess. Um, but they're also very like American. Like my grandma, my grandfather, Wilfredo Noyeto, he was a famous writer. He published a novel and like was very highly acclaimed. So that was his legacy. And my grandmother, she was a writer and very like prominent and established and like accomplished in her own right, and she she definitely worked a lot of her life. Like most recently, like in her career, she's become like an ESL teacher. Um, so, but she writes still, which is amazing. She's very a very devout Catholic. Um, So that's like a major part of her identity. It's probably like the most core part of her identity, besides being Filipino, like very much Filipino, like old school Filipino. Like my grandma can tell me stories of like World War II and like what it was like under like Japanese like encampment and like Philippine, like in like US. Like it's really intense. So my grandma's seen some intense shit. And like my grandma's like my rock, and she's like my best friend essentially, like in life. And so I'm like so happy that I'm able to like spend time with her and like hear these stories from her and like really learn like who I am. Like my great grandfather, like he was a lawyer, and he like wasn't, he was like he like pro bono, he like, he was like he was a lawyer of the people. So I'm so happy to like be able to know where I come from. And like I think it's so funny that I have like exactly where I am and doing what I'm doing. Like I do social media for the environmental like climate movement. Like it is the movement of my time, and I'm doing something that my family has done, but I'm doing it for like the millennial like generation. Like I'm doing it for now. Like it's amazing how like history is like played out through like me and like my family, and like, but we're defined by the Philippines, and like they'll always like be part of me, even though it never like in some ways it never really was. So I'm happy that I have that. Like I'm happy that I have this identity. Like, again, like so many people don't know these things about themselves. And it's sad, I feel sad for them. So, yes, I'm happy that I have mine.